Yes. Karatasi.
All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. It's a very heavy discussion we are having here. We're calling it the triple threat. We're talking about HIV, SGBV, and teen pregnancies as well. We'd like to hear your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. And Lucy, I'll start with you on this one. And feel free to stop me at any given point if you're not comfortable sharing this information. I'm starting with you because you mentioned that in your time you went through SGBV as well. But the question is, were you able to report at any given point, and what action was taken? Did you even know that you're supposed to report?
I'm laughing because that's not something that you're taught. If anything, every person who has gone through violence, especially a young woman, and violence from a loved one or a partner, you're told, mwanamke ni kuvumilia. Tumepata vitu mingi hata kushinda hizi. That's the message that you get. No one ever tells you, you know, you need to go to report. Actually, if you tell a person to report, they might actually even stay away from you because you probably want to break their house. You're seen as now the enemy versus the perpetrator who's bringing in violence. So I never got to report, Trevor. I tell people that by the age of 20, is when I had gotten through all this, had become a teen mom, had been married to really a person who was not supposed to even get married to. Your both kids, and extreme poverty, whereby you are eating a meal a day or not, to not even accessing, being able to afford healthcare. And in healthcare, I don't mean kwenda Aga Khan. I mean I could not afford 20 shillings to go to the health facility. A government facility, 20 bob ya kupewa kadi. I could not afford that. And this is the same case. Nothing has changed so far. Not so much has changed so far. And by the time now a person is hitting you, a person who probably gives you that 1 meal a day because you don't have the support you would need. Because, you know, for you to get to a point where you are reporting, to get to seek justice, you need support. Whether if it's from family, friends, or at least some of the partners we have in the community, like the Dandora Justice Center that we were to get today, or like Positive Young Women Voices. You know, you're not alone. You're not pushing this on your own. At least you have someone who's calling and asking you, did you report? Bring the OB. Have you done this? Have you done that? So if this is the only person you're expecting to give you a meal, at least someone else introduces you to probably socioeconomic empowerment or something that can bring in money. So without that, it's very hard for you to report. And also because you are young, you're thinking, this is not for me. I love this guy. I think it was a weakness of the moment. And that's why at Positive Young Women Voices, we bring young men and young women to discuss what sexual and gender-based violence is, first of all. What is it? Do you know economic violence is violence? Do you know that if a person is not allowing you to go to work, like in my case, I was told to stay home. You're eating 1 meal a day, you can go work, but you're told you can't work. My wife does not work in this house. I am the man, I bring in the money. Which money? Which money? You don't even have money. So that is violence. When you're being verbally abused, when you're told, you know, all these ugly things that a person can tell you, and they're so subtle, and then they keep on growing. That is violence. So getting young people to know that this is violence, and you can leave. You don't have to stay in this relationship. Leave. You'll get better. Or if it's rape, if it's in a relationship, date rape is there. Yeah. Rape in marriage is there. So how do we tell a person to go report? So what are the reporting mechanisms? Where do we go report? You don't just go report anywhere. Yeah. If you're going to, like in Dandora, you have Kinyago police station, you don't go to the reception, I don't know how to call it. You know, mahali pa kwanza unapata police station, there's a gender desk. You go to the gender desk. There you might probably get someone who really understands what you're talking about, the issues you're talking about. They are trained for this specific thing. And they're able to at least shake this person who is violating you. Yeah. But if you don't know that, you don't go. You go to where you unakemewa, and then you go home and you're saying police don't help, you know?
Yeah. And Dr. Masha, these two, we are supposed to gain ground with it by 2030. But are we gaining ground or are we losing ground? And what are the loopholes that you see when it comes to dealing with STVV?
Yeah, so the issue of sexual and gender-based violence is quite complicated, as Lucy has rightly said. And I want to break it down to, one, it's not for example, all adolescents and young people want to have sex. In fact, majority actually are abstinent. They are not having sex. And we are standing up and preaching about abstinence, and which is a good thing. But right from the corridor of home, we start to begin to see incest. We start to begin to see grandfathers, fathers, brothers, uncles taking advantage of this girl. And the conversation about sexual violence begin there from home. Then you've seen also sometimes the caregivers, if it's in school, we again hear about the same incidents of sexual violence against the same girl. Then you come again to the community. So we are making progress on two fronts. One is, for example, if you compare last year, 2022 and 2021, we see an increase from about 16,000 to 21,000 reported cases. But that increase could be good. It could be that people are now reporting. People are aware that they can actually walk into a police station and report. They can go to a health facility and report. So that's one progress we must make.
Yeah.
The second progress is that then we look at accountability. And we are going around, we've just met over 100,000 people, one-on-one. And we sit down with the chiefs, Nyumba Kumi, the community health volunteers, and we begin a conversation and ask ourselves, what is the role of adults in sexual and gender-based violence? Yeah. So we are making progress because I have seen from different counties where men stand up and say that if you come back here, you're not going to see any of these violators. And I've seen when I go back, when I go back, people call me the triple threat, you know.
Yeah.
They assume I'm the face of the triple threat. So they start telling me, madam, when you're here last, you said that you don't want any girls to be defied. Yeah. And we are telling you that we are the men, we are watching over the girls. So that is the milestone we are seeing. But that milestone can only be achieved if you're consistent. Okay. And we've, for example, there's one place where we were talking to religious leaders, and the girl was saying that when she told the preacher about her ordeal with her own father, it happened that her father is also the giver in the church. So nothing was done to this father. Yeah. And she never thought she could report the father to anyone else until when he violated the sister, and the sister then went to report. Okay. So those are the conversations that you must have. So 2030, we want to have a conversation that regardless of what you want to call it, it doesn't matter that the terminology is what we can't agree, but there must be a conversation that we are changing the education levels, we are changing the awareness, but also you are getting to what you call zero tolerance. And zero tolerance is what will get us to 2030, where it doesn't matter, it's your brother, uncle, you actually feel that if somebody has violated a child or a girl or a woman, that you don't feel that they're acceptable to you and you don't take that as normal. Okay. So that breaking the silence must get us to where we want to go.
All right. But Joyce, do you think that the justice system in Kenya is also partly to blame for this rising cases of SGBV, because there's inadequate investigations and poor evidence preservation, which eventually leads to very few convictions, if any?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of actors to blame. And especially because sexual and gender-based violence, every young girl that I know has gone through some form of violence, either it's the catcalling in the streets or whatever it is. But it's how usually gender-based violence is downplayed. For example, if you walk into the police station to report this, I know that there is a gender desk because I am in this space. But this is not common knowledge. It's not like somewhere where you walk in, even when you look at the police service charter, you don't know who to speak to about what, when. Now, gender-based violence is something that is also very largely stigmatized. You can't, I went through this at some point in campus as well, but not, he says it wasn't violence, says he threatened me and did not do nothing about it. And even as empowered as I was, I couldn't talk to someone about this. I couldn't open up and say, oh, he threatened to hit me, and then he did. My family would probably be surprised about this information right now. But I was in campus, and you know how campus things are. There's food, you have to find food, you have to, you know, get help with education and stuff. So this person took advantage of that kind of vulnerability at that time. I knew there's a gender desk. I knew I could go to the police station, but I didn't know if I could trust that the justice system will handle this issue with urgency, so that my pain is not prolonged, my, you know, the trauma that you've lived through is not prolonged. It took me a while to be able to talk to people. I think actually the first person I talked to was Lucy, and how she took it is what encouraged me to also be able to talk to other people to share this kind of experience, because she wasn't surprised. She wasn't, you know, lashing me for being empowered and not being able to walk the talk. You know, when I go to a school and say, if someone does this to you, you should go to report this and that. But if you ask me now, I don't know what the justice system is. From that police station, I do not know what comes next. And it's because of that complete lack of knowledge that we are not having these conversations. Nobody wants to be dragged. You don't want your issues to be dragged through and through for years and for months or something like that. I have watched a few features on TV, actually, on young people, young kids, like being defiled, and how their cases, their files go missing, or people get compensated out of court. I mean, there are other means of litigation, I know, but how this constantly just disappears and how this matter loses intensity after a few days is what surprises me. From my side, I do know that if I go through violence, I can speak to someone, but this is not common knowledge. The justice conversation is at another level altogether. It's not something that we think of. It's not something that you know, you have to get a lawyer at some point. Or you have to go and tell someone exactly what happened. Yeah. But in most cases, there are many reasons as to why people do not report gender-based violence. One thing that Lucy mentioned, she was told not to go work. But in most cases, you do not even want to go report this person because you're fully dependent on this person. At that time, I was dependent on that human. That person. And I didn't know if I went to report, then that would mean I also lost my source of income at that time. And that would mean I lost my power, my stability at that particular time. So what did I tell myself? Just hang in there until I actually got a job and I pushed myself out of it. Yeah. So there are many other factors to it, but in terms of the justice system, I think there's a lot that definitely can be done beyond the gender desk at the police station, of which in most cases, we've had toll-free numbers where people can call to report these issues, and those numbers sometimes go unpicked. All these issues are the reasons why most people do not want to report gender-based violence.
Yeah. Lucy, you want to come in before I bring in Said? Yeah?
Yes. Because I just remembered, today, someone mentioned in our session today, they had mentioned in one of our trainings a girl that the sister was raped by someone, and the person who raped her would keep on taunting her. He would come to her place of work. When she moves to a new house, he goes to that area, just making sure that she sees him. And he was sent by the husband to the sister. 8 years later, it's when just last month, this guy was imprisoned for 25 years. 8 years, she has had to, to tolerate that because she had no choice. Because at some point, you lose faith in the justice system. The other person I wanted to mention was a girl that we were referred to. She was, during the COVID season, she was raped by the caretaker. The caretaker defiled because she's underage. She was defiled just after KCPE, and the first time she was defiled, she got pregnant. Because you are required to preserve evidence, this child is evidence. So you don't get to decide what to do with that child. You have to give birth to this child and raise this child as you wait for judgment. And this child is told, because of this child, you have DNA, you actually did defile this child. Can you imagine? The father kicked her out of home. The mom could not do anything because she wants to be on the good side of the dad. This is her husband. By the end of the day, she has more kids with her. She was feeling alone. She at least went through counseling. She at least got a scholarship to go back to school 2 years later, when the child is 2 years. And that's just the other day. So this girl will probably face this a long time. Yeah. The mother is still pushing for justice, but the other things at home are failing. The support of the mom being there is not there. The support of dad and family. She's banned from going home. A 13-year-old. All she ever did was get defiled. It had nothing to do with her. So who has failed this girl? It's not just the justice system. Yeah. It's all the people around her. The entire system there,
plus the society, plus the parents and everything. And Said, finish up.
No, I was just trying to say it doesn't have to be strangers coming in to do this, to be the support system for your child. As a church, failed. As parents, failed. School system, failed. So much failure all around us, and people need to take accountability. The
justice system comes towards the tail end. And Said, most of SGBV is perpetrated by men. I'm not saying there are not men who are violated by women, but most of it is men against women. Is it an issue of toxic masculinity that then we need to be taught better as men of how to express ourselves, or how to talk to the female gender? And is this a generational issue? That there's no place where you're taught what to do, how to do it, and at what point? So we're just winging it as we grow.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. And if there is one thing that really disappoints me as an individual, is hearing the violence against women, because number one, we are living in a chauvinist society, male chauvinist society. Number two, we are having issue of also social status. And number three, it has been like normalized, like in the society. Like today, if, for example, a young girl or any other woman in the world explained that so-and-so was talking me very indecent, the question was, how did you dress? How are you dressing? Why were you going there? So it has been put like, the society has put it like men have a right to tell a woman anything, anytime. They have a right to use that masculinity you are talking about. And the issue of social status, you will find that most people who abuse young girls or any other girls, you will find that there are people who have some sort of different status. Maybe it could be a area chief, it could be the son of the chief, it could be the son of who and who. So if people are told, kindly follow justice and go and report, people feel like battling with that person is a huge task to complete. And in many cases have failed. We've seen people, and it's so unfortunately the way, for example, for instance, rape, the way you are told if one evidence is flouted. For example, if someone is raped and they went and took a shower and that evidence is not there, that person will be denied justice. You see, the issue of sexual harassment, we have bosses who are not disciplined enough. They will call you in their office, you think they want to assist, you want to assist them with jobs, they'll start harassing you, they'll start telling you stories which are so indecent. How do we report that? Because as a person, many cases has come to my side, people are complaining, boss so-and-so has done this to me, but you want to collect that evidence and report, you find that you cannot go ahead, Trevor. So for me, I think men in this society, in a male chauvinist society, we really need to be sensitized. We really need not to see other sex gender as a sexual object, you know. We need to see them as people who can moderate the society, society, people who can lead. Myself, I'm lucky when I come from a county which is led by a woman. I should see her as Honorable Fatuma Achani. You know, I should see her as a governor, as a leader, you know. I shouldn't just see any other thing. So it should also be happening even at the lower level. Not you don't have really to say this person is vulnerable, now you take advantage of their vulnerability. Yeah. I would say, Trevor, it takes a human to help a woman who says, I'm hungry. Because they tell you they are hungry. They didn't say they are horny. They didn't say they are in need of sex. They are in need of food. So give them food and let them go, you know. Okay. And I think, I normally say that, Trevor, because sometimes I think if today I violate or I sexual harass any lady, what will happen to my daughter? Will I be happy when my daughter is the same thing done to them? Will I be happy when my sister is done the same? Will I be happy even with my mom if my mom is getting a boss who sexual harass her every time? Yeah. And I think when we talk about the gender-based violence, I think it's very extreme. And this enabled me to extend my answer for the women who use drugs. Women who use drugs have challenges. Some of us are sex workers. You will find they get a client uses them for sex, and they don't pay them. At the end of the day, they yell at them like thieves, and everyone in the society, you are labeled. Because if you are using heroin, you are labeled to be a criminal. So once that happened, many of our sisters who use drugs have been raped, and they didn't know how to report the case. Yeah. You report the case, but one tag you are given, what can you tell us? And you are just a person who used drugs. We know you are just making stories. So I think men in the society need to be sensitized. As we sensitize women, men also need to be sensitized also to cope with women who come up also to be very powerful. Because today, Trevor, you will find someone, they are a couple. Today, their wives are promoted in one area or another. They start feeling threat. They start telling them, oh, you are talking to me like that's because you were promoted. No, it's not that they were promoted. Maybe that's their character. You need to cope with that character. Okay. So I think as men, we need to sensitize ourselves. Okay. We need to have this continuum conversation on how we treat other people. Okay. Yeah.
And Dr. Masha, should then this conversation be personalized? Because I know even if I look into the camera right now and ask the people who are watching that, don't you know at least one person who's been abused? But what have you done about it? I'm sure the answer will be the usual. Hey, watu wanajifunika blanketi moja usiingilie. Should it be a point where if you see something, you have to speak about it? But then our culture also comes in. How do you speak about something when the culture of that person you're speaking for is that they go for alternative dispute resolution? You know very well that they say that this has been handled by the elders. You know that the elders, at the end of it all, they're looking for a consensus, but not justice. Then how do you intervene?
So, and Trevor, that's why, although the occurrence of violence is at a personal level, we are saying that the accountability must be at a communal level. And the only reason that sexual violence thrives or gender-based violence thrives is when the ecosystem around the people or the violators is complacent and treat it as normal. But if you upset that and get people within one surrounding saying, for example, we do not condone, and they speak about it, and they take action about it, you then realize that the personal issue in the house is becoming the village issue, it's becoming the estate issue. And it's so sad, especially in places like Nairobi, where you find, like, even in an apartment, people know that something happens in that next door, but because of the city that we live in, we don't want to confront and ask ourselves what's going on. We've had really terrible cases happening, and then when later the media come to interview, people always say that actually we thought there was something wrong.
But they never said it.
And they never said anything about it. Even for children, you know, when you look at the Western side of the world, people just report something about a child, even if it's not their child. They just say, we saw. And that's why we are saying, even with this campaign, that, we are saying, if you see, say, even if you smell violence, talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah, because one of the things that we have that is very cheap to intervene is the word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because the word of mouth is you telling Trevor realizing they can get help for this particular child or family. So I think I keep saying is breaking the silence, but with action. We've talked about the justice system. And I really like the fact that during this government, a lot is happening around the justice system. In fact, the Chief Justice recently did say that she's going to open up courts to accelerate access to justice for people who are sexually violated. And that, for me, is a step forward. Because as Lucy said, no one wants to be walking around with this case for 10 years, and people start telling you, actually move on. I have a friend who is affluent, and she's been driving across the country to go to court for a court case where the daughter was sexually, where the doctor was sexually violated. And I was speaking to her, and she was saying it really takes a different kind of heart, because that case has dragged on for the last 5 years. So you put fuel in your car, you're going into the place where the case happened, and you have to go over and over and over, produce the same statement. Sometimes they get there in the morning, they're told the case is been moved.
Yeah.
And that frustration makes people then don't want to follow the path of justice. And lack of access to justice means complacency, because the violator does 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cases. And only when the society realizes that this person probably will continue doing it is when sometimes they act, sometimes too late. So we are saying that we are calling for 3 things. That kind of sense of urgency. Yeah. Then we are calling for accountability, but we're also calling for the communal way of thinking. Just the way we are saying, can't tolerate something around ourselves, then let's not tolerate it again around our neighbors. So we will have to walk that path.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take a quick break again. When you come back, now we talk about teen pregnancies as we wind up on this conversation. I know there's a lot of feedback. I'll read some of them right after this break, all right? See you in just a bit.